As a young girl, Sansa Stark dreamt of nothing more than marrying a prince, living in a castle, and carrying on a life of romance and magic straight out of a fairy tale. Life in Westeros, however, had other plans for the eldest Stark sister. When Joffrey Baratheon first visited Winterfell, Sansa was immediately smitten. Here was her handsome young prince, ready to whisk her away from the cold drudgeries of life in the north to the sunnier, warmer climes of King's Landing. But that's not how life played out. Joffrey was, simply put, a monster, most of all to Sansa. First demanding that her father Ned Stark be executed on trumped-up charges of treason, then forcing her to see his head on a spike outside of the castle, not to mention having her publicly beaten by his guards simply for his twisted amusement. Sansa's life in King's Landing was an almost unrelenting nightmare, but she never admitted defeat. Even Tyrion was impressed with the resolve when, after Joffrey's beating, she maintained her public loyalty to him, and refused Tyrion's offer to annul her betrothal to the prince. Despite her suffering, Sansa was able to glean from her time with Cersei a keen sense of how to manipulate people and occasionally lie if it meant her survival depended on it. This would prove invaluable to Sansa later in the series. Following Joffrey's death at the so-called Purple Wedding, Sansa was whisked away by the treacherous Petyr Littlefinger Baelish for safekeeping. While this arrangement wasn't quite as horrific as her betrothal to Joffrey, it certainly wasn't a fairy tale either. Even if it seemed as though he truly cared for her, if only due to his undying love of her mother Catelyn Stark, it certainly didn't stop Littlefinger from using Sansa as a pawn in his scheming when he married her off to Ramsay Bolton in order to strengthen his standing in the north. If her life in King's Landing was nightmarish, then her life with the recently legitimized bastard Ramsay Bolton was a further descent into hell. Whereas Joffrey would humiliate her and verbally abuse her, he never actually laid a hand on her, as, in his words, a king should never strike his lady. Granted, he'd simply have one of his guards do it for him, but he arguably had some boundaries. Ramsay Bolton had none. Sansa was captive to the Boltons and subject to Ramsay's horrific abuses. All that Sansa experienced may have utterly broken a lesser person, or someone with less resolve than she possessed. Each of her trials hardened her and forced her to mature to the harsh realities of life in Westeros. But she never lost her sense of compassion or love for what remained of her family. Her experiences also brought previously unseen traits in Sansa's personality, namely ruthlessness and an ability to lead, to the forefront. When she exacted her revenge on Ramsay after leading the Knights of the Vale to help her family reclaim Winterfell, it wasn't without a certain visible satisfaction showing on her face. When her brother Jon Snow left Winterfell in her charge so he could meet with Daenerys Targaryen, not only did she perform her duties as Wardeness of the North admirably, she was finally able to reveal Littlefinger's treachery once and for all and have him executed. While Sansa may have first appeared as a naive, idealistic child, dreaming of princes and castles and days spent eating lemon cakes and gossiping, she's grown into so much more than that. After suffering so long and enduring so much, all while maintaining a strong sense of identity and moral resolve, Sansa has evolved into a benevolent leader, surprisingly excellent strategist, and one of the strongest characters on Game of Thrones as a whole. Learn more about Sansa Stark at Game of Thrones Wiki.